Hi. Hello everyone. Thank you for coming to our learning video this time. And now we are going to discuss about classroom management and general tips. For further discussion, please do not skip this video. Come on. And today we have 25 important points related to classroom management and general tips. Don't waste any more time. So guys, everyone, let's get into the discussion.
Number 1. Arrange the seating to help. You should be prepared to rearrange the desk both for your language lessons and sometimes even for a particular activity, so that it is both easier and more natural for students to see and talk to each other. For the typical adult class of perhaps between 5 and 15 students, one of the following arrangements would probably be best. For school class of perhaps 30, it is probably best to use the conventional arrangement for activities which are centered upon the teacher, but to allow students to move either their desk or at least their chairs for pair and group work. The seating should suggest that students are encouraged to talk to each other. At the same time, it should allow for the removal of the teacher from center dominant role during certain activities. Number 2. Stand up when you're directing activity. In general, it is only a good idea to sit down in a language class on 2 occasions. Firstly, if the students are doing something which for the moment does not involve you. The second occasion is if you are having a conversation or discussion with the class. For most activities in the language classroom, it is important that the students can see you, and in particular, your mouth and eyes is much easier if you are standing. Standing also means you can see all the students clearly and can use your eyes and hands effectively. Number 3. Look at the students. If you are standing and your eyes are constantly moving over the class, everyone feels involved. Your eyes help your students' concentration. Your eyes can be used instead of your hands to indicate who should answer a question, whether something is right or wrong, to encourage, and etc. If you can use your eyes effectively, you will find it easier to avoid using unnecessary language. It is particularly important to remember that the easiest way to check whether your students understand what you have said or what they have read or heard, it is for your eyes to look at theirs. Number 4. Use your hands to encourage and direct students. There are 3 main ways of showing students where you want: your voice, your eyes, and your hands. There are 2 main reasons for using your hands. You avoid unnecessary language which can distract students, and while remaining completely clear, your hands can be used to increase the pace of the lesson. A simple gesture can indicate who is going to answer a question, or which pair of students should now read a dialogue. Simple gesture can also indicate that something is wrong. For example, holding up one hand and shaking it from side to side, or that a student should repeat something, a circular rolling motion with one hand. Number 5. Use the back of your hand to point. If you point in the conventional way, it can appear aggressive and inhibit students. Using the back of your hand to gesture is less intimidating and conveys an invitation rather than a directive. Number 6. Use pauses to punctuate what you say. If the teacher speaks without punctuation in the class, students will be very confused. One of the main ways to provide this spoken punctuation is to make very short pauses before each change in the use of language form. For example, instruction to example. These pauses are an important feature of the way the teacher uses language in the classroom. The example shows clearly that the teacher is using language for different purposes. Listen again. Listen again is giving instruction. Does she know him? Is giving example. Notice in the first, it is commenting. Number 7, vary your voice. The teacher's voice has an important role in creating the quality of teaching variations. Therefore, the intonation, tone, volume, and speed of the teacher's voice need to be properly regulated. In describing and dramatizing an even a word, the teacher must know the word or event that must be emphasized. Emphasis is placed on several events or keywords in a subject matter that's being delivered so that students understand the most important aspects of the subject matter they receive. Number 8, keep your language to a minimum. When students are doing something, if you speak, students will usually listen. If you want to encourage your student to use language, it obviously means that once you have to introduce an activity and make clear what is wanted, you must be prepared to keep quiet. There are several important implications. The first, don't interrupt students unnecessarily while they are preparing something. The second, don't dominate discussion yourself. The third, don't tell students what they want to say. And the last is, don't use more language than is necessary to direct and control classroom activity. Number 9, don't commentate. It is essential to involve students in the learning process, and discussion of classroom activities can often be valuable. Many inexperienced teachers, however, keep up a more or less non-stop commentary on their own activities. For example, well, now we're going to read the text. I read it first, and when I want you to read it after me, and then there are some questions after the text, and when we read it, I'm going to ask you the questions, and you are going to answer them. Unfortunately, students never know whether what you are saying is important or not. Any commentary you give should be of help to the students and not used either to reassure yourself or simply to fill up silence. Number 10, don't be afraid of silence. Teachers need to encourage their students to talk. Often forget that silence also has a valuable part to play in language lessons. Constant language is classroom management. Timing. Students need time to think, collect their thoughts, make notes, and etc. Silence is particularly desirable. The first, when students are doing something individually, reading a text or explanation, completing an exercise, preparing a piece of work, if the teacher speaks during these activities, it breaks the student's concentration. The second, an individual is hesitating during an exercise or looking for a word. Here, the teacher jumping into soon makes the student lazy. The silent struggle to understand or recall is a natural part of language learning. The third, in discussions, the student sometimes needs time to formulate a thought, and most important of all, if the teacher is constantly injecting ideas, students will soon sit back and expect the teacher to do the work. And the last is, sometimes there should be silence for the sake of silence. If something has been happening, there is to be a change of activity, or students need, for example, to get out a new book. A moment or two of silence in the middle of a lesson means that students can return with renewed concentration to the activity which follows. Because the room is silent, it doesn't mean nothing is happening. The secret is a balance between activity and quiet moments for reflection.
Number 11. Don't be afraid of noisy. There are many perspectives in society that a quiet class is better than a noisy class. We should pay attention if in oral learning, for example, students are required to convey what is related to the ongoing learning material, so that it is necessary for us as a teacher to provide opportunities for students to talk and convey information and inspirations related to the learning of the day. Remember that a noisy classroom is not always a bad class. Number 12. Use pair work to increase student talking time even if it seems chaos. To direct students to the assignment or work in pair, there is an advantage too, where they can further develop their skill in speaking, for example. But the most important thing a teacher must do for the class to run smoothly is the teacher must give good, correct, and precise instructions. There are times when in pair work they often expect the other to complete the task. So it is important that teacher continue to supervise them during the learning process. Number 13. Use group work to increase student learn talking time. Provide opportunities for students to interact to improve their speaking skills, because if it is done in group, the student will be more free to express their opinions, because sometimes students do not know the answer to the question given, but they feel depressed about situation that cause loss of concentration. And when the teacher gives assignment in group, the teacher needs to pay attention to first aspect, with room for how long material topic, so that everyone can get the maximum possible result. Number 14. Be explicit. Careful planning is one of the activities that need to be a priority for teachers as well. Teachers need to know that their students need, so that no material was to be conveyed. So that in delivering material, the teacher does not have to rush or slow down because there is no prior planning. Precisely, in the classroom, the teacher must convey the material properly and precisely, and in this case, the teacher must be firm, straightforward, not complicated, so that people can catch the meaning easily. Number 15. Don't ask, "Do you understand?" What often happens when teacher asks questions, class calms down, because sometimes there is fear when they want to ask questions from the student themselves. There are other ways for teacher to know whether they understand or not. That is, during the class, the teacher makes eye contact with the student in the classroom as much as possible, and don't ask the whole "got it" or "understand," but at each point of discussion, the teacher can also ask it, so that students focus more on the point too, because if asked as a whole, the students will usually be overwhelmed. And number 16, don't go around the class if individuals can prepare particular examples. Let students prepare their own assignment. A teacher does not need to go around the class. Let students answer questions based on the order of their seats, so that will allow students to prepare themselves. 17. Admit your ignorance. Teachers are also human, so not all things can be mastered, especially in teaching English. We as people whose mother language is not English, until whenever we learn new things, even as much as we are informed about everything, there must be a certain point that we have not mastered, so that we need recognition from ourselves, so as not to lie to many parties. For students, remember that every problem has an answer. The teacher needs to convey that he does not know the answer to the questions given. Another solution is that the teacher can say we can find the answer together. Number 18. Consult college. Sometimes we as a teacher cannot answer the question given, so that the teacher needs to seek answer to this question. The first thing that comes to our mind is looking for references such as books, scientific works, and what most often happens in looking for references from the internet. It is not wrong to do all of that. To do all that will take a lot of time. It is impossible for a school to have only one teacher. There must be some of our colleges who we can work with. In this case, we can ask these unanswered questions. There must be teachers who have broad insight than us. So it is important to consult with colleges so that we can add more insight into the material we teach. Number 19. Consult students. Sometimes teachers need to ask students about other best learning solutions and can accept the solution so that the class can run well. Because students do not always understand how to teach teachers, as we know that the purpose of teaching a teacher is to provide broader knowledge and convey something new to students, so that it is better if the teacher consults students in the right way or method that they would be able to understand during the teaching and learning process. Number 20. Demonstrate rather than explain new activities. We often meet in class. There are times when the teachers say many things but only a few are related to the learning material that students can understand. So that a lot of time is wasted. It is better to create a good class where the teacher explains in advance all important things related to the material and then ask for a line to display as instructed, so that the two sides of the material given, namely the teacher and the recipient of the material, student can enjoy the class and understand the material well and on the target.
Number 21. Exploit real events. Inevitably, much of the language used in the classroom is unnatural. The teacher sets up situations and gives students an opportunity to practice. Unfortunately, opportunities for natural language use are often ignored. Firstly, teachers should try to use natural language themselves and occasionally draw attention to such uses as "Sorry, I'm late, blah blah blah. I'm afraid, blah blah. Could you, blah blah blah, please? Would you, blah blah blah, please?" If you sneezy, say "Excuse me." If you know it is student's birthday, say "Many happy returns." In the first lesson of the spring term, start by saying "Happy New Year." It is better to present this expression in natural context rather than coldly, as items to be learned. More difficult and more useful is to stimulate the students into using the language naturally. Number 22. Divide the blackboard. The blackboard is a visual aid. 8 are supposed to help. Larger boards should be divided into 3 parts. two smaller side panels, and a larger central area. One side panel is used for listing new words and phrases and is not cleaned during the lesson. Nothing else is put in this section. The second small section is used for doodles, drawings, and aspect odds and ends, etc. It may be cleaned constantly. A large central section is used to present the main material of the lesson, grammatical examples, examples for exercise, and etc. This may also be cleaned as required. Try dividing your blackboard. It is a discipline which helps all teachers.
Number 24. Machinery will not solve all your problems. The modern, well-equipped language classroom of course needs a blackboard divided into parts. Ideally, a large block of paper beside the blackboard on which the teacher can write material which will be needed from lesson to lesson, a type recorder, and for the reason we have just discussed, an overhead project. Each of these has a valuable role to play, and they all have something in common. The teacher remains in control of when and how they are used. It is fashionable to talk about using video and computer in language teaching. Good use of these machines depend not only on the hardware, but on good software and on teacher being aware of the full potential of the machinery. Machinery cannot do the work for you. It is only a first step. The second step is the software used on the machines, and the third and probably most important step is you, the teacher. No machine can smile at the student. Teaching is a personal activity, and anything which obscure that needs to be treated with the greatest caution. Number 25. Expand, don't clutter. Less experienced teachers tend to take in material, piles of it, carefully, but all too often over-prepare. They are ready to teach some material which all too easily becomes a barrier between them and the students. Bad teachers are disorganized, good teachers are organized, but very good teachers are half organized and have the technique at their disposal to develop a small amount of material in a way which responds to the student's particular needs or mood in the particular lesson. Less experienced teachers are advised as strongly as possible to acquaint themselves with the range of technique which can be applied to different materials on different days in slightly different way, and a range of activities are filers which provide an insurance police and the possibility of variety. Once you have these at your disposal, you will soon develop the confidence to take in only basic materials which you can expand. If you ever find yourself saying, I think we've just got time for grammar practice, pronunciation practice. Before the end of the lesson, you have not taken on board to the advice of this section. Relax, stop pushing. Create space. Remember, students learn best when they are relaxed. Similarly, teachers teach best when they are prepared and alert, but equally are also relaxed.